Going ahead is the organizational design and the strategic management. That is, what is the relation between the organization design? We had in the previous session we had seen the organizational structure and how, according to the various structures, the strategies they are impacted. Or to be more appropriate, we can say that with the change in the strategies, when the company thinks of implementing a particular strategy, it necessitates the organizations to change the organizational structure. The organizational design has basically two dimensions: the structural dimension and the conceptual dimensions. And each of them, they have their sub dimensions also. If you take the first point from the structural dimensions, it's the formalization or the formal structural design, we can say. Now, many of the companies, they have the formal approach or formalized structure, which includes maybe the communication to the employees or the managers in form of written documentation of the procedures, the policies, the rules and regulations, the norms, job descriptions, manuals of the organization, of the company. So here, for the formal structure, the employee is made aware about all of the aspects. Well, in case of informal structure, there is no stringent norm or a rule which is adopted in the organization. But wherever there is formalization, the protocols are generally followed. So during the training itself, the employee is made aware about the pros and cons. What are the requirements, or we can say the procedures adapted, the rules of the organization, what are the policies of the organization. This formalization is also a part of organization culture. Each and every organization differs in its culture. Coming to the specialization part, here we had seen the different type of structures. Maybe if the structure is based upon the functional aspects, that is, you have the marketing specialized structure. With reference to marketing, you have a unit, and again in marketing you have different subunits. Similarly, you have the production department, you have the finance department, the IT department, and the sub departments under them. So the scope for specialization is mentioned in the structure itself. When you understand the structure, when you know the structure, you immediately get to know whether it is based on the specialization, and further whether the tasks are subdivided so that each and every department is assigned a particular role, and their roles are fixed. They have certain objectives to be performed, and they restrict or confine to those specificities. Now here, some of the organizations where the specialization is taken up, the organization culture is more specific. Specific in the sense they give more weightage to the specialized skills of the employees. Here they may have the separate advertising department, they may have the separate research and development part. Here they may have the marketing research department. So the company aims to gain the quality approach by motivating the specialization part. Well, against this, there might be an organization where it is confined to only a single department of marketing, and all the roles and the responsibilities are assigned to a single department. Like they take care of advertising, the promotion part, the data marketing research parts, or gathering of the data or data collection. Everything is given to that single department. So the degree which is allowed to that specific or specialized part, it depends upon the organizational culture. The how much liberty is given to that specific department or to that manager. Now the hierarchy of authority, it's basically related to who reports to whom. That is the, maybe in fundamentals of management you had seen the term the span of control. The span of control is the number of subordinates who are reporting to a superior. So under a particular manager, how many people are working, to whom they are reporting. So this is the span of control. Many a times it happens that a particular sub department is reporting to two bosses because they require that data. Suppose if it is the, with reference to marketing research where the data is collected, even the in production the design department requires, and even for marketing department also requires. So your reporting is to both the departments. And complexities arise when this hierarchy it is intermingled and when they are not clearly defined. The roles and responsibilities are not clearly reported, they are not clearly stated or mentioned, and when a person doesn't know whom to report, or when there are more than one bosses to whom the employee has to report, then there is a confusion. So the role should be specific and it should be well defined. The centralization, here basically the centralization relates to the decision making by the top management. That is whether the company motivates the centralization or the decentralization part. Many of the managers are given the liberty to take the decision on their own. Well, in many of the organizations, the authority is restricted. So it depends upon the organizations which type of style they follow. In centralization, only the authority lies in the hands of the top management. Here, as more people come together, decision making process becomes a bit complex, as well as time taken is more. Against this, in case of decentralization, as the authority is given to those specific uh, managers, then it becomes simpler to convince these managers, and the process of decision making seems to be faster, moves ahead a bit faster. Now, professionalism, it's the level of the formal education and training of the employees. To what extent the professionalism is maintained, the formal education is given to the employees, and the training of the employees is taken care of. Many of the times we use the term that the company is very professional, it follows a professional approach, they are professionals. That is, when the company works towards the betterment, or we can say towards being more specific, then we say it's a professionalism. The personal ratios. Now here it refers to the people who are working in various departments under various functions. Actually, how this relates to how many people actually should work and what is the ratio, how many people are actually working, and what was the estimated number of employees to assign that particular task. So with reference to this, according to the structural dimensions, okay, here also in personal ratio, again, it depends upon the style of management. One may think of having a person performing many roles, or against this only a specific task in which the person is comfortable and skilled. Those tasks only are given to that person. So it depends upon the management style. These structural dimensions relate to the design of the organization. Now coming to the contextual dimensions, here it describes the organizational setting which shapes the structural dimension of it. Now, if we consider the environment, suppose if the company is undergoing some changes, like it's moving ahead with the expansion strategy, it is crossing the national borders and moving into the international markets. So here, it goes for the expansion of the employees. It needs certain specialized skill sets. The company is looking for very specific roles by the managers. So it depends upon the situation of the company, what exactly are the factors which are affecting the day-to-day functioning of the organization. Suppose if the company is facing funds as far as the finances are considered, then it would not be feasible to recruit more people unnecessarily. Similarly, if the company is upgrading with reference to technology, there are competitors who have come up with a new technology, and here so in such situation, the company thinks of opting some changes in the existing structural dimensions. That is, we say with in context to the changes in environmental factors. These may be the internal or the external. When we say it's an environment, we have seen different environmental factors. If the company is going for the expansion, if it is upgrading the technology, that is, it is strengthening itself. Or maybe if the company is facing the threat and it wants to upgrade, it's what to change. That is with reference to external environment. Goals and the strategy. Now here, whenever the company thinks of opting a strategy, when the company thinks of opting a strategy, it has certain specific goals to be achieved. And hence it requires to change the existing organizational structure. It needs to change the design of the organizational structure. Similarly, the culture. In the next slide, I would be discussing the cultural part there. So the culture also influences the organizational structure here. As far as the technology is considered, in terms of technology, according to the requirement of that particular time frame, the companies think of changing it. Many a times the companies think of integrating. Now, size is the next important factor. So, if the company is very large, it needs to have more people. With the more people, it needs to think of the structure which fits into the size of the organization to accommodate. So, large corporate giants generally they do have. Now, the dimensions and the sub-dimensions of the organizational design both are related or correlated to each other. Now, they prove to be the basis for analysis and reveal much of the information. As organization moves from one stage of growth to the other stage, as it starts affecting the internal day-to-day functioning of the organization, the companies start thinking about changing the mechanism of the structure. The environment is very dynamic. Every now and then the policies they do change. The competitors come up with a new strategy. So it becomes necessary for the organizations to cope with the changing scenarios. And hence, they need to think of changing the structure. Now, here, wherever the market is stable, where the companies have laid the foundation, there is no problem. But where the situation is very volatile and dynamic, uh, rapidly the market is reacting and which demands the quick decision making. Here, the company thinks of meeting the demands by creating new organizational design structures. Now, it's the demand of the situation and the time which keeps them alert, which makes them alert and pushes the organization to change the organizational structure. Now, it depends upon the company, uh, whether it's a slow moving organization, whether the organization is not reactive to opt for functional structures, or maybe or an organization is very dynamic who would like to meet the fast pace with the competition. It may go for the divisional structure. Now, basically here, the foundation lies in the mission and the objectives of the organization. They are the key elements. So here, when the key activities, the managers, they understand what exactly are the key activities to be achieved, then they can follow some steps like to achieve those particular objectives, what would be the strategy to be formulated, who all should be involved, what role should be given to a particular department, which type of structure would fit so that the objectives are achieved. What will be the different types of groups or departments who would be involved to accomplish the tasks or activities. And accordingly, creation of different departments is undertaken, either departments or divisions, one can say. Also, uh, the subdivisions. The coordination in between these departments plays a very vital role. They are many a times integrated, and hence the flow of communication or information between these departments becomes very essential. Now, basically, where the structure is complex, there are many issues which are to be tackled by the managers. As the managers face the challenges of cross-functional roles played by the managers. Many a times the authority, the designations, they are the roadblocks to move ahead. The organizational change also takes place in terms of two broad dimensions, that is the structural changes as well as the accompanying behavioral change. Now, the first, as the name insists, structural changes relates to the changes or modifications in structural relationships of hierarchy in the organization. Like one can think of creating the departments or integrating the departments, or wherever they want to upgrade the department, they can think of adding a new department. While the behavioral change relates to behavioral modifications which are essential to absorb the effect of organizational changes. Many a times for the companies, those who are moving ahead with the changes, those who are embracing the change part, they have to create space for new roles and responsibilities. At the same time, they cannot think of leaving aside the existing employees or the managers. They have to accommodate them also with the changes. For a formal organizations, uh, adapting to this new changes becomes easier as they have the formal interrelationship well defined. While in case of informal organization, it becomes a bit difficult to accommodate as the problems arise due to behavioral aspects of the employees and the roles which are defined by the organization. Now, whenever a company thinks of changing themselves in terms of strategies, it is also reflected. It is all the other aspects of structure, the administrative procedure, it is also impacted in the one or the other way. Similarly, the behavior of the people is also affected. Now, as the today the world is changing, it has become more dynamic. It becomes essential for the organizations also think about the changing organizational structural designs. Now here companies think of restructuring the organization or reorganization, re-engineering, delayering, flatter structures they are adopting. So the companies think of changing them, restructuring or a reorganization. Maybe it refers to changing the structure in line with changes in the environment and strategies also. Re-engineering basically is with reference to the business processes, which is related to rethinking and radical design of business processes to achieve gains, maybe in terms of quality, in terms of giving better service, providing better service, in terms of cost, etc. Delayering is reducing the number of levels in the organizational hierarchy with a motive to better control and communicate the organization, improve the control part as well as the communication within the employees. Flatter structures is the result of delayering. Here the companies do not want to include more chain and hence chain of authority, and hence they think of having the flatter structures where parallelly the managers are working. So here the organizational design and the strategies are very much correlated to each other. Moving ahead is the re-engineering part, re-engineering and the strategy implementation part. Now, what is re-engineering? It is the radical design of business processes to achieve major gains in terms of cost, service, or time. So here, when the companies thinks of um, changing the process part, maybe if the company wants to upgrade in terms of quality aspects, it has to change the business processes, whatever it had previously, it has to modify. Now here, it's not only the structure, but the effective program to implement a total turnaround strategy. When the organization thinks of implementing some quality initiatives to make the better quality product, it has to change the process, many times the structure and the processes also. With the new era or with the change in the times, the previously existed policies, rules, procedures, they have to be changed, and new processes have to be welcomed in the re-engineering part. Whatever is existing has to be washed off, and as per the demand of the time, new processes have to be set up. Maybe the company thinks of shifting from the manual to the automation part, in this case also the company needs to think about the re-engineering. Now there are some principles of re-engineering, like organize around the outcomes, not the tasks. Like instead of focusing on the task or a set of activities, how the objectives are achieved or what would be the outcome of it is more emphasized here in this re-engineering part. Because why the company takes any re-engineering, it wants to change the existing structure, maybe existing processes, and hence they are facing some problems, some limitation, and that's why they want to upgrade it. Maybe the company wants to undertake new technology and hence they think of upgrading. But here, when the company thinks of upgrading, actually what is the end they are going to meet has to be understood. So the companies should give more weightage to the end results to be achieved rather than focusing on a single task of the departments. Now, with the help of more technological support, with the help of new softwares, the processes can be re-engineered in such a manner that people who await the outcome or the result of that particular process, they can do it by themselves. There is no need for them to depend upon a particular department. If the key aspects of that technologies are handed over to these employees themselves, and they can map the results with the outcome here, basically. Subsume information processing work into the real work that produces the information. Now, people or the departments which produce information can also process it for use. Instead of they sending just the collected data in a raw format, with the help of the technology, they can think of themselves analyzing this raw data, transforming it into a better way, and then passing it on to other departments for further work or further interpretation. Here it saves the time also and repetition of work also. Now also here, the geographically dispersed resources, they are also centralized with the modern information systems. The companies, they provide a flexible approach while keeping the actual resources in a centralized location place. They can think of coordinating with the departments so that these resources can be used, well used. Now also, instead of having a separate unit, they can think of integrating it, they can think of coming together, all of the departments coming together to perform the activity, to perform the. So when the employees have to perform certain tasks, when they have to achieve certain objectives, many a times the integrated approach or the cooperative approach works well as compared to individualization and carrying out the roles and responsibilities themselves. When more people come together and integrate, they can also share their problems. There are others who can come up with a new solution by analyzing a new dimension of the tasks or processes. And hence the uh, outcome by this integrated approach or cooperative means is something different than the expected. Now also, uh, many times it happens that the decision makers are somebody else, and the people who perform the task, they are very much different. That is, the ground reality is only those managers they understand, those who are actively involved in day-to-day functioning or activities, while the top level management is not that much aware, even though they have the glimpse of it. They are provided with the hint of the type and nature of process, but still, uh, when they are taking the decisions, if they are not aware about the detailed tasks involved or the activities involved, then there is a problem. So those people who accomplish the task, if they are given the leverage to control the things, it becomes much more easier and it simplifies the tasks also. Also, in terms of developing the database and information processing activities, if one could have, the companies could have a single point of sharing, it's always much better, so that any department which needs to have access to that particular data, they can get easily through this centralized processing unit. Now, instead of changing the entire organization, the company can make changes with reference to specific processes. Maybe they can think of redesigning a particular activity where the company sees to it as more useful, and there is no need to change the entire setup of the process. So wherever required, there only actually the company should think of changing the process part. Otherwise, it would create a havoc also, and it would be more complex also, especially for the people who are working in that setup. Now, this is about the re-engineering part. Now, coming to the next part, it's with reference to the corporate culture. Now, every organization, it follows certain culture. The managers who work in the organization, they are influenced by the culture of that organization. What is organization culture? It is a set of important assumptions which the members of an organization they share in common. what are the beliefs or the value systems followed in that particular organization or the company. When we say they are the corporate norms, which means it is expected standard behavior of the employees in that organizations. So when three of them, that is beliefs, values, and norms, are shared in the organization by the employees, they create corporate culture. Now, one can just visualize, observe, interpret the culture in an organization, maybe in terms of something which is unique among the employees, which is given due weightage by the employees, some sayings, or a reflection of actions by the people. Like one can think of having the way of greeting the people, the uniqueness in it, or the dress code which the people are wearing. It also reflects the corporate culture. Now, the organization culture not only impacts the managerial behavior of the manager, but also the basically the decisions about the organization in terms of strategy formulation. Now, the culture is basically the strength of the organization. Many a times it depends on the situation. It also proves to be weakness also. This corporate culture, it helps to facilitate communication in terms of decision making and controlling the activities and the roles of the people. It helps to facilitate the cooperation and the commitments in the people, among the people. Now, each and every organization has their own set of beliefs. Especially when there is a problem when the companies move ahead with the strategies of joint ventures, welcoming the joint ventures or the acquisition part. Here, the complexities arise because of the changes in the corporate cultures of those companies. The background matters a lot for the organizations. If there is a mismatch between this corporate culture, or if the people are not ready to adjust or accept the corporate culture, then it really becomes very difficult to move ahead with the decisions, maybe for joint ventures or for acquisition, etc. Now, if the one looks at the dimension of the corporate cultures and relates with the professionally managed companies or the multinational subsidiaries and the family businesses or the NRIs companies. So, in terms of dimensions of corporate culture, the nature of desired managerial skills and capabilities for the multinational subsidiaries, the emphasis is more on qualifications and rank. When one perceives about the managerial skills and capabilities. While for a family business or NRIs, uh, the emphasis is more on action and thinking, the innovation or upgradation of the knowledge and skills by their personal efforts. Here, more weightage is given to the skill sets of the people. In terms of managerial style of planning and decision making, in terms of multinational subsidiaries or professionally managed companies, the information gathering, the bureaucratic model of functioning, the risk part is more considered. While in terms of family business and NRI companies, the emphasis is laid on the selective usage and quantitative decision making. In terms of management systems adoption, the emphasis is more on the use of elegance. While for the family business and NRI companies, the emphasis is more on the business sense and gearing up of action oriented. Also, in terms of nature of management control, in terms of multinational subsidiaries and professionally managed companies, the formal reporting, the formal as well as the written reporting, the resolution of the problems are given more emphasis. While for the family businesses or the NRI companies, the emphasis on the use of verbal reporting and the remedial actions. So they are given the more weightage. When one thinks about the strategic options, strategic decision making, many a times the companies, they are also limited by the corporate culture followed in the organization. If the company is rooted by the culture of quality mark and does not emphasize much on profits or believe more in fundamental value systems rather than just deriving the profits, here it becomes difficult for the managers to move ahead with the decision making criteria because the culture itself proves to be a roadblock in them in such cases. Every strategy proves to have different challenges in terms of cultural aspects. Each strategy creates its own unique set of managerial activities. So here, when the strategy implementation part is considered, it also affects the behavioral aspects and the tasks in a manner performed by the managers. Its efficiency and effectiveness is affected basically. And hence, Now here the options for the managers are uh, when it becomes difficult to change the culture of the organization, many a times the managers they ignore the corporate culture and move ahead with the decision making criteria. The next option available is to adapt strategy implementation which suits to the corporate culture, where the different attributes are manipulated which are in the better interest of the corporate culture. So here the managers basically think of mapping the culture with the tasks performed. Many a times where there is possibility of mapping the culture or changing it, and the leverage is given by the management, top management, the managers take the full authority to change the existing pool of culture by imbibing new beliefs and systems into the organization. The another option which the managers considers is to change the strategy only so that it fits into the culture of the organization, so that there are no complexities or problems which arise, and there is no conflict in terms of moving ahead with the strategies and the culture part also. So here it depends upon that particular manager how they solve the issue, particular issue, or uh, how they think of changing the strategies to map the culture of the organization. So this is about the corporate culture and its impact on the strategy. In the next session, we will move ahead with the next part, that is management by objectives. It is also part of corporate culture and the strategy evaluation. Today, we will stop here.
Thank you, ma'am.